Hi, and thanks for joining me again. It's been almost a month since I shared my FY24 operating budget. This week, the County Council heard from 150 residents across 4 public hearings about the proposal. My $6.8 billion budget is a 7.7% increase over last year's. I'm recommending growth even as experts are forecasting a mild recession, because I do believe that there's a strong need to retain the services that we had to have because of the pandemic. Our budget also spans affordable housing, economic development, public safety, and efforts to combat climate change. There are significant investments in Montgomery College and a 10-cent property tax increase for Montgomery County Public Schools. First of all, regarding the schools, and that's the most important topic, county teacher pay has fallen behind other jurisdictions that have lower costs of living than we do, making it harder to attract teachers to the county. A new teacher here doesn't even make enough anymore to qualify for the county's moderately priced dwelling unit program, the county's signature affordable housing program that was designed in 1974 for teachers, firefighters, and police officers. And our school investments themselves, again, once a leader in the state, have fallen below the level they were 12 years ago, 20% below that level. And then considering what's coming in the next couple of years, this picture gets just a little bit grimmer. The Kirwan Commission is requiring that all state school systems have a starting salary of $60,000 per year by 2027. The county is well below that right now. This means if we don't increase our salaries now, soon a new teacher will be deciding to take the same job either here or in a county, for example, out on the Eastern Shore, where the pay is the same now, but it'll be much cheaper to live, and you're closer to the beach. You shouldn't expect to get the same result when you spend less money, but that's what we've been doing. Reinvesting in our school system is the best way to help educate our kids, help the education system recover from COVID, keep our communities strong, and our home values healthy. For decades, the most qualified and best trained teachers chose MCPS because we paid better and offered better benefits. But if we aren't competitive in this regard anymore, how do we attract the best to teach in our school system? And with the shortage of teachers in general, how do we attract enough teachers? This problem is at the core of the discussion about the needed investment in the schools. And it needs to be repeated. The revenue for this property tax increase can only be used toward education spending. These expenditures only fund new costs, not existing costs. This increase is provided what Dr. McKnight requested and the Board of Education approved. This discussion is not just about our schools. It's also about creating a talented workforce, creating jobs, keeping our economy robust and attractive. It's not just families who move here for our good schools, it's also businesses. We learned firsthand during the competition for Amazon's new headquarters how much education and workforce talent means to where a business ultimately decides to move to and to create jobs. I hope you keep a close eye on the work being done by the County Council over the next several weeks. Their budget experts have been looking over our proposals, and now it's time for the public to weigh in and help the Council develop the plan moving forward. I believe every cent is essential. There's $124 million in this budget for affordable housing, almost $40 million for rent supports. There's $20 million to fund Montgomery County Green Bank, which also looks at ways to strengthen our economy while also helping the environment. More than $60 million goes to Vision Zero transportation priorities to save lives and keep the roads safer for all of us. These programs and this assistance are too important to simply vanish. This is a tough budget. We're being hit with the perfect storm of inflation costs, increased needs, while losing federal funds for our COVID relief and support programs. As we put this budget together, we didn't anticipate a tax increase, and we probably could have met a normal maintenance of effort level of spending request from the school system. That is, until the school system sent over their budget with an absolutely unprecedented ask for spending that was anything but normal. But the situation of the schools is also anything but normal. There was simply no way to take $222 million out of our existing budgets to fit in the schools. without doing serious harm to county programs that our residents rely on. I look forward to working with the County Council throughout this process, as well as to discuss these investments with our residents throughout our communities. Monday was the last day of the Maryland General Assembly 2023 legislative session. Throughout this session, we saw a renewed spirit of cooperation, as well as new energy thanks to the administration of Governor Wes Moore and Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. I want to thank and appreciate the efforts of the Montgomery County House and Senate delegations under the leadership of Delegate Palakovich-Carr and Senator Kramer, respectively. Our delegation brought in more than $1 billion in direct aid to Montgomery County, an 8% increase from last year. Our delegation was able to secure capital funding for key projects like the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing, the Bowie Mill Bike Trail, Burtonsville Park and Ride, the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center, and our high school wellness centers. I also appreciate the passage of key legislation that will invest in our students, combat climate change, protect abortion rights, reduce gun violence, and legalize cannabis sales throughout the state. We're very grateful for all the hard work that led these legislative accomplishments. One of the wins we had in Annapolis this season that I'm most pleased with was securing one-time funding in next year's budget for the BRT and gaining bonding authority for our BRT bus rapid transit plans moving forward. Montgomery County is the only jurisdiction in the state with the ability and eligibility to move forward with a plan like this to allow the county to self-finance a big transportation project for years to come. We've been developing plans to expand our flash service along US 29 from Burtonsville to Silver Spring, develop service along New Hampshire Avenue, on Veers Mill Road from Wheaton to Rockville, and up and down Rockville Pike from Bethesda to Clarksburg. The help we receive through the General Assembly will help us accelerate these changes. I want to thank our delegation for championing this through. This legislation establishes a continuing source of revenue to help us build out our BRT system, to reduce congestion, make this a greener county by taking more cars off the road, and improve the way many of us get around the county and the region. Among the bills that Governor Moore signed into law yesterday was the Fair Wage Act of 2023. As you know, minimum wage is an issue that I've worked on for many years. I want to thank Governor Moore for making this one of his earliest priorities, and I want to thank him for the honor of inviting me to testify alongside him to support this important legislation. Another legislative victory of the governor that I supported was the SERVE Act that incentivizes our young adults into public and community service. I think this initiative will not only make a profound difference throughout our state, but will end up being one of Governor Moore's lasting legacies. Over the upcoming weeks, we look forward to highlighting many of these legislative accomplishments of our state delegation. While the state of Maryland took steps forward to reduce gun violence and further enshrine protections for women seeking abortions, we are witnessing absurdity elsewhere in the country. The actions of an activist judge in Texas overturning an over two-decade ruling from the FDA on mifepristone are alarming. This precedent not only puts at risk access to reproductive rights, but also means that any drug on any health issue could be recalled by our judicial system by a judge that has not the slightest clue what he's talking about. This is nonsense, and it demonstrates that the Republican Party is certainly not the party of science, it's the party of science denial. This decision not only impacts the concerns this county has about protecting the rights for women's health, but it also has an economic impact on our life science communities and our economy. We are home to the FDA, and many of our residents and businesses work in this industry that has saved countless lives through science and innovation. This is clearly judicial activism of an unprecedented nature from a group that is simply hell-bent on controlling others' personal health choices. Meanwhile, the actions from the Tennessee state legislature following the horrible school shooting there and expelling 2 black lawmakers for fighting for sensible gun control legislation was just appalling in its brazenness. It's not just racist, it's un-American. Gun violence is a problem throughout this nation, and we're not going to solve it by banning free speech. The only way this current climate of craziness changes is at the ballot box. And I hope that more Americans in these communities are awakening to the erosion of their liberties by these ideologues. For the first time since becoming county executive, I was able to make an international trip to cultivate relationships for future business and academic opportunities. We had many meetings with company leaders and with leadership at 2 universities, and on both sides, people were looking for opportunities to partner with innovative companies and research organizations. They're seeking opportunities to plant their flag in America, and in the case of the 5 companies that we brought with us, to plant the flag in Taiwan. We were excited to find that people there knew about Montgomery County. We met people who graduated from the University of Maryland. I actually met somebody who graduated from Montgomery College and then graduated from the University of Maryland. These people had lived in our county, had worked at NIH or in a number of pharma companies located here, and some have even already planted companies here. Being known was helpful, particularly when we were in groups with people who were less familiar with us. I feel we left having strengthened connections with our county that would be of mutual benefit. I also believe the trip was a good opportunity to get the word out about the University of Maryland's Institute for Health Computing project with the AI industry leaders. When they talk about America's biotech footprint, their initial thought is Silicon Valley or Boston. The Institute coming to Bethesda will help change that perception. Having a research facility in on the cutting edge of applying computational biology to medical research will help elevate our region into one of the premier places for life sciences in the world. I'm very optimistic about the opportunities that lie ahead, and thanks to the relationships we developed on our trip. As we prepare for the end of the emergency phase of the pandemic, we're seeing more state-led COVID-19 testing centers closing. This week brought the closure to testing centers in Annapolis and Bowie. Here in Montgomery County, we continue to offer services like testing, vaccines, and booster appointments. One big difference between now and then is how much support we'll get for these services from the state and federal government. The state will soon no longer be tracking cases to the extent they were before, with a county-by-county breakdown of data that's shared publicly on a regular basis. The federal government will no longer be paying for many of the services it did for the last 3 years. All of this means that we will have to rely more on our own public health experts to determine the threat level in our community. For those at home, we ask you to stay up to date on your vaccines and boosters. Keep the elderly and immunocompromised in mind because they're still the most vulnerable parts of our population to new strains of the virus. Finally, remain vigilant. Our community threat level remains low, as it has been now for several weeks. There's no denying that it's a good thing. We also learned lessons from COVID-19. There's no reason to jeopardize public health safety again needlessly. Just in time for April showers, the county has completed installation of its flood sensor program. We have placed 35 sensors around the county that can alert residents sooner about flooded roadways, potential dam failures, and streams overflowing their banks. We showed off those sensors last summer in Germantown when we announced our plan to add them to flood-prone areas. The sensors use a tethered mode that is placed underwater. The node detects the amount of pressure placed upon it by the water and calculates the depth of the water. Every 5 minutes, data is sent from the sensor by a cell phone card to a master display. A small color camera also sends images back to the main display. When water levels approach or exceed flood stage, a crew is sent to investigate the potential flooding and whether a low-lying road needs to be cleared, or if an emergency action plan for a dam needs to be activated. This life-saving technology came from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This partnership between DHS and the county is critical to our efforts in warning Montgomery County residents about dangerous and life-threatening floods. Flash floods are a real and recurring threat, and thanks to global warming. We must be able to notify residents sooner of where flooding is happening so they can avoid danger. That's a wrap for today. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be back again next week.